I never liked the Newsboys that much or DC Talk at all, but you break them up and merge pieces back together and suddenly, I like it. Good morning. It seems strange walking up here without a video intro of a movie series like we've been doing all year. Good to have you guys today. Welcome all you moms. I know that a lot of our people are traveling on Mother's Day because we have a lot of young families here who leave on Mama's Day to go to church with their mamas, and we always bless them and say, please go be with your mamas today. So we got people all over, not just the area, but all over the country spending time with their moms today, and we just think that's a priority. But thank you guys for being here and a part of what God wants to do in us today. I was with my mom a couple of weeks ago. As you know, she was here for a couple of weeks visiting. Mom, I know you'll be watching this tomorrow. Happy Mother's Day. So we got to spend a little bit of quality time together, but we're about 900 miles apart today. So that gives me more energy to spend time with the rest of you mamas. My mom taught me a lot, and I've shared these things before, and I found that most moms, at least from my era of time, were about the same kind of little lessons that they taught us, and the same little things that they said. And I've used some of these examples before, and I can almost hear her voice saying these things today. My mother taught me about contortionism.
Will you look at that dirt on the back of your neck?
How many ever heard that before? My mother taught me about stamina.
You will sit there until all that spinach is gone.
And I did. My mother taught me about weather.
This room of yours looked like a tornado went through it.
And it did. My mother taught me about hypocrisy.
If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000,000 times. Don't exaggerate.
And she, like some of you, never picked up on that. My mother taught me about the circle of life.
I brought you into this world, and I can take you out.
My mother taught me about anticipation.
Just you wait until we get home.
And the dread was the worst part, right? My mother taught me about medical science.
If you don't stop crossing your eyes, they're going to stay that way.
My mother taught me about humor.
When that lawnmower cuts off your toes, don't come running to me.
Which would be difficult. My mother taught me about genetics.
You are just like your father.
Is that not good? My mother taught me about my roots.
Shut that door behind you. Do you think you were raised in a barn?
And actually, some of us were. We grew up on a farm. My mother taught me about wisdom.
When you get to be my age, you'll understand.
That is true. My mother taught me about ESP.
Put your sweater on. Don't you think that I know when you're cold?
She always knew things about me I never knew about myself. Did you ever notice that? My mother taught me to meet a challenge.
What were you thinking? Answer me when I talk to you. Don't talk back to me.
What? Did you know what to do? I didn't know what to do. My mother taught me about patience.
Sure, you can do that. As soon as you're 21 and leave the house.
And I did. My mother taught me diplomacy.
I don't want to hear who started it. It takes two to fight.
My mother taught me about sharing.
Play nicely with that, or I'll just take it away from both of you.
Which never seemed fair to me. My mother taught me etiquette.
Use your fork. If I see that hand on the table again, I'll slap it.
Remember the slapping days? Anybody here? And it wasn't just the hands, right? My mother taught me about envy.
There are millions of less fortunate children in this world who don't have wonderful parents like you do.
My mother taught me about receiving.
You're going to get it when we get home.
My mother taught me to think ahead.
If you don't pass your spelling test, you'll never get a good job.
My mother taught me about justice.
One day you'll have kids, and I hope they turn out just like you.
And mine has. My mother taught me how to become an adult.
If you don't eat your vegetables, you'll never grow up.
Obviously, I ate a lot of string beans, huh? Most of all, my mother taught me about love.
You know that whatever you do or whatever happens, I'll stand behind you because I love you.
Now, how many of your moms said that to you? And I can testify to you, I would not be here today if that were not true. It was my mom who constantly kept her foot up against my Heineken, not just saying you can do this, but you will do this. And I felt like I had a little choice because we grew up in a different age back then. It was a time where you really never heard kids talk back much to their children, and it was because of the consequences that you don't see anymore. That too. Both. We're going. You know, the more you run your mouth, the more the odds increase you're going to say something wrong. Exactly. So it was a different time back then. A different time. There's lots of good Bible stories about moms. Some great moms and some moms that were not so great. But I was thinking this week, trying to think of a story, one story that talked about two moms, where we could see a really good mom and a not so good mom. And this story popped to my head, and it's a story you've probably heard many times. It's usually not talking about the moms as much as talking about Solomon's great wisdom. But I want to read this story today, and I don't want you to be distracted by the fact that these two mothers were in fact prostitutes. I don't want you to devalue the story. I have learned through many years of experience that there's many reasons why people do what they do, even things that aren't very good. And I've learned not to judge some things. And I have learned that there's not too many little girls that grow up saying, I don't know if I want to be a nurse or a prostitute when I grow up. It just doesn't happen. And what you find, though, is lots of young ladies end up doing things they never thought they would be capable of doing just to survive. Don't know what was going on with these two ladies, but I can see definitely in the character of one, she probably was not doing what she was doing by choice, but for survival reasons. And I want you to know beneath the heart, of the surface of the heart of this prostitute, beat the heart of a wonderful mother. Let's read this story. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, My lord, this woman and I live in the same house. I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born. The other woman said, No, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours. But the first one insisted, No, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine. And so they argued before the king. The king said, This one says my son is alive and your son is dead. Well, that one says, No, your son is dead and mine is alive. Then the king said, Bring me a sword. So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other. The woman whose son was alive was filled with compassion for her son and said to the king, Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. But the other said, Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then the king gave his ruling. Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother. How many's ever heard this story or read this story before? It's a powerful story. It's a story not just of the wisdom of great King Solomon, but it's the story of 2 types of mothers in the earth. It's the tale of 2 moms. And it's the story of moms who know how to hold on and when to let go. The one mom, the second mom in this story, there's not much we can say about her today. She is not the example of a good mother. She only wanted what she wanted for herself. And she wanted it so bad, she was willing to see the sacrifice of a second child if she couldn't get what she wanted. She was not a good mother. We cannot use her as a good example for you today. But the second mother, the first mother, she was a shining example. She was a mom who knew when to hold on and knew when to let go. And I have found in 17 years now of pastoring, 30 years total of ministry, I have noticed in observing moms, having a mom myself, being married to a mom, being surrounded by moms, that this seems to be a very difficult chore for mothers. Knowing when to hold on, knowing when to let go. This mother fought to hold on to what she knew was her child until she saw that holding on to her child was going to mean the death of her child, and then she knew it was time to release that child and let that child go. There was a time to fight for that child's life, and there was a time if that child was going to live, she knew how to back off and let go. The Bible is full of stories of mamas that have learned how to do these two things. It's easier to find the stories of mamas who just knew how to do the good motherly things. There's not a lot in the story that tells us about them letting go. But one of the good stories is the story of Rebekah, Isaac's wife. And you know the story. They have two sons, and Jacob tends to be the favored son. Him and Esau come out about the same time. They are twins. Jacob comes out literally holding on to the heel of his brother. Problem is, in Hebrew culture, the firstborn gets the choice inheritance, which means Esau really has the birthright and gets the choice blessing of his father when they come of age. The problem is that when Mama began to observe the hearts of these two sons, she noticed that things got a little bit backwards the way they came out of the womb. Esau was a man who clearly did not care about his birthright or his blessing. In fact, if you remember the story, he sold his birthright to his brother for a bowl of lentil soup. He didn't care. He said, "What's the point of having a birthright? I'm about to die here." He wasn't about to die. He was hungry. How many remembers when your children have said things like that? I'm going to die here. I'm so hungry. You're not going to die. Just hold on. But to a child, I'm dying here. Nothing else matters. I'm hungry. And that's what was going on with Esau. Mama didn't only see the difference in the hearts in those two children. She knew what was fair and what was just. Esau did sell his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of soup. It now belonged to Jacob. But when it came time for Daddy's blessing for Isaiah to bless his two sons, Esau should come first and get the choice blessing. The choice blessing goes to the one with the birthright, which now belonged to Jacob. And Mama knew that. So Mama knew when to fight for her son. She knew when to saddle up with her son. She saw her son's destiny. She saw her son's birthright, his purpose, who he now could be in life. The son with the birthright, the son with the blessing. And if you've read the Bible all the way into Hebrews 11, you understand that whatever blessing Isaiah pronounced over these two sons would come to pass. Heaven was going to back what was spoken in the earth, and you could not change it. In fact, Isaiah admitted after he blessed the wrong son, and Esau shows up and says, "Father, bless me now." And he says, "Sorry, I've already given the choice blessing to your son. I can't take it back." So Rebekah does what she has to do. And to the untrained eye, it would seem a little unfair what's going on here, because this mother and this son is conspiring to trick this father who is old and blind on his deathbed, basically. Esau was a hairy young man, and so they covered Jacob with some goat hair, and I think they rubbed meat all over him because Esau was a hunter. Made him smell like Esau, made him feel like Esau. Brought him to Isaiah, who was blind, and he reached out his hand to make sure that it was Esau and felt the hairy arm. Feels like the right son, so he blesses him. Come to find out it was Jacob. Mama knew how to fight for her son's rights. She saw his purpose, his destiny, and she was not going to let him lose it without her fighting with him. That's what mothers do. That's what my mother did. When I was losing my birthright, when I was losing my destiny, my purpose, when I was throwing it away for just stupidity, ignorance, being a young man, not understanding a lot of important things in life. Losing my life to a whole party lifestyle and alcohol and all that comes with it, and just reckless living. My mom staying up to the wee hours of the morning. It didn't matter what time I got home. When I walked past her bedroom to my bedroom, I heard her in there praying. And she would be crying out, and I could tell she was crying out in a way that I could hear her at times too. Lord, save my son. Lord, cause your Spirit to contend with him. Draw him back, Lord. And she was fighting spiritually for my life. And she had the effectual, fervent prayer of a mother going on. And to this day, I know I am not just serving God, not just a pastor, but I'm alive because of my mama's prayers, because she prayed with an authority few people could pray with. And she fought for me. And I'll never forget the day she came to me and she said, Scotty, you're leaving here. We're packing up your stuff and you're going to Florida, and you are going to Bible college. I was in no condition to be going to Bible college. Bible colleges didn't want people like me. They were afraid of people like me. I could taint the whole village. My mom said, I've already filled out the paperwork and you're leaving on this date. I had a Jeep CJ7 with this huge lift kit and big tires and stuff, nothing you could travel in. They said, we're getting rid of your vehicle, we're going to get you a vehicle you can travel in, and you're out of here, you're leaving. You are leaving this house, you are leaving this town, you are leaving your friends, and you are going to Bible college, the original plan we all knew God had for your life. She knew how to fight. She also knew how to do what God did to Adam and Eve in the very beginning, boot you out of the house. Because sometimes it's the only way you're going to live and get on with your life. Rebecca did that with Jacob. She fought for Jacob. And she did everything in her power to make sure Jacob would find his purpose and his destiny in life. But after this happened and Esau was very upset, Esau made a vow, I'm going to kill my brother. And Rebecca, Mama, comes to Jacob and says, oh, son, we've accomplished what we needed to accomplish at this point. Time for a new chapter. You're out of here. You are out of this house. Now she understood for her son to live and fulfill his purpose, she had to make him leave. She couldn't hold on. She had to let go. At one point, his whole future depended on her holding on. Now it comes to a point where his whole future depends on her letting go. Rebecca did that with Jacob. My mom did that with me. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Very similar story. She saw greatness in her son at a very young age. There is no doubt about it. And when he's 30 years old, he's come of age in Hebrew culture. And she understands it's time in that culture. In this culture, we would expect that to begin much sooner, by the way. That was just Hebrew culture. And she knew it was time for him to get on with his life, to be a man now, to be the Christ, to be the Messiah, to fulfill his purpose. And you know the story. It took place at a wedding banquet. And they're serving the wine, and they run out of wine, and they don't know what to do. And evidently they were very close to this family. And Mary was very moved with compassion concerning the embarrassment this family was going to have to now undergo. And she knew something needed to be done, and she saw a perfect opportunity. She comes to her son. And she says, you can change this today. It's time, son. It's time. You know what the son said? No. Now, the Bible doesn't say anything here about her wringing his cheeks. But if this story was about me and my mom, that's what would have been going on. Because ain't no sassing mama. Ain't no back talking. I bet you I don't remember, I probably did it a few times, but I have no memories of me ever back-talking my mom because I saw what happened to my older brother every time he did. And I didn't want that. He still has rosy red cheeks to this day. Mary stands her ground. He says, I'm not going to do this. She's saying, you can do a miracle. It's time for you to launch your ministry. It's time to get on with your purpose. It's time for you to be who you are supposed to be in this earth. He says, I'm not going to do this. She turns from him. She looks at the attendant. She says, do what he tells you to do, because he is going to give you some instructions. What does he do? Exactly what Mama tells him to do. She knew how to hold on to her son, holding on to his destiny, holding on to his purpose. She knew how to be strong when she needed to be strong and say, no, you are going to do this. I observe very clearly nowadays there's a huge percentage of mamas that ain't got that intestinal fortitude anymore. They let their children sass them and backtalk them and tell them what they're going to do. Times have changed. Thank you, Father, that Mary was not that kind of mother. She knew how to fight for her son. She knew how to hold on. She also knew how to let go. I want you to look at this portion of Scripture taking place at the cross. Maybe something you've never really paid that much attention to before. It's one of those Scriptures we would kind of skate right over here in Matthew 27. This is at the cross. It says, many women were there, watching from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, Jose? We're in the wrong country here. And the mother of Zebedee's sons. Okay. We've got some Marys going on here. You know who one of the Marys are, right? Okay, listen. Luke, I think it's Luke has even a better picture of this. Luke says Mary, the mother of Jesus. They're watching from a what? From a distance. How many of you thinks that it would be easy for a mother to see that happening to her son and to watch that from a distance? How many of you guys would say, you mamas, that it would be more natural to be right up there on top of what's going on, trying to tear him off the cross, clawing the eyeballs out of those Roman soldiers? It is not innate for a mother to stand and watch her child be abused and mistreated, even when they become an adult, because mamas never quite see their children as adults. Am I right on some level? I love that car commercial where the father comes out and the little girl is sitting in the seat and she says, now don't drive too fast, don't go to the speed limit, buckle your seatbelt. And the little girl's going, I will, Dad, I will, Dad, I will, Dad. And then the scene changes and it's his young adult daughter, say, or teenage daughter getting ready to drive. But point being, Dad still saw her as this little bitty girl. That's how parents are. I know that's how I'll be. Mary is watching from a distance. Why? Because she knows it's time to let go. There was a time to hold on. There's a time to let go. There's a time to fight for your child's future. There's a time that you've got to step back. And they've got to be on their own now. Sometimes their life depends on you fighting and holding on. But the day will come in every child's life where their future and their life will completely depend on mama letting go. It takes both. Mary was like that. She knew when to hold on. She knew when to let go. There's lots of mamas in the Bible that knew how to let go. I mean, who's ever heard of Jochebed before? Whose mama was that? Moses. So Pharaoh issues a decree that all these baby boys be killed. It's getting out of control here. They don't know what to do, so they're going to kill the baby boys and thin down the slave population. And so he issues a decree that all these baby boys would be killed. Jochebed is Moses' mommy, and she has this baby, and And even though this is happening at a very young age and he's a baby, I want you to hear the spiritual story behind the story. If you've been here on Wednesday nights, you know there's a spiritual story behind the natural story. This story really has nothing to do with how old anybody in the story is. It's a spiritual story. Paul said these stories in the Old Testament are to teach us spiritual lessons for today. What we have here is a mother who has a son. And there's a decree now to kill her son with all the other baby boys. And so now she's going to let go and do what she's got to do to save her child's life. To save her son now means letting go of his life. So you know the story. She weaves a little basket out of bulrush reeds and she takes him down to the Nile River and she hides him in the reeds. And Pharaoh's daughter comes down and taking a bath in the river, and she hears a baby crying, and lo and behold, she finds this baby boy. It's baby Moses. And she instantly just falls in love with him, and she wants to take him home. And of course, Moses' big sister was there, and she said, hey, it looks like this baby still needs to nurse some. You want me to go find a mama that can nurse this baby for you? And Pharaoh's daughter's like, that's a great idea. She said, well, hold on, I think I know someone. And who does she go get? Mama, Jochebed. What's the moral to the story? If you're willing to let go when the time is right, you will not only save your child's life, you will get your child back. There's a spiritual story here. It's powerful. If you can let go when you see that letting go is what is going to be required to save that child's life, and for every mama in here, I promise you, there will be that point in your child's life where their destiny, their future will hinge on you not holding on, but letting go. It's a powerful story. She lets go to save her son's life, and the reward is she gets her son's life back. I mean, it's the story of Hannah. Powerful, powerful story. Hannah crying out for a child. She's barren. She wants a baby so bad, and in Hebrew culture, that was a terrible thing to be barren as a woman. And so she's crying out to the Lord and crying out to the Lord, and the priest is running her out of the temple because he thinks she's drunk the way that she's just crying out to the Lord, and she's just saying, no, I'm not drunk, I'm desperate. And God finally gives her a child, a baby boy. His name is Samuel. And she's excited because she finally is a mother. And this is another story that you have to look at the spiritual story behind the natural story. God's trying to show us something in the story, especially to mamas. And we're going to pick the story up at 1 Samuel chapter 1, beginning in verse 21. And I want you to see what's going on here. When the man Elkanah, which was Samuel's father, by the way, went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifices to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. Do what seems best to you, Elkanah, her husband, told her. Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. And after he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with the 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And when they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, who was the priest. And she said to him, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you, praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. So now I give him to the Lord. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. Mama said, she declared it. And he worshiped the Lord there. You know the story. She turned and she walked away. And she left her son in the hands of the priest to be raised in the house of God. Now we know this is not a story that in the natural that we learn how to follow this lead. We know that. I love your children. But I don't want you bringing me your children and saying, here they are. They're yours to raise here in the house of God. I'll take a couple more, but it'd be hard to choose which two. We might could rotate some in and out. Good chance we'd need to. It's a spiritual story. Here's what God's trying to tell us. Your children are a gift from me. I didn't have to give them to you. I entrusted these children to you. And here's the deal. They're my kids first, your kids second. The deal is, when I entrust this treasure to you, I expect you to bring them into my kingdom, my house, where they will grow up. They will grow up in the house of God. They will sit under the teaching of a man or a woman of God. The moral to the story for Samuel was, because of that, he became the first official prophet. First big-time recognized prophet of God. Isn't that amazing? The moral to the story is, if mama will know how to turn her children over to the Lord, God can do incredible things for their life. I want you to look at the most beautiful part of this story. She said, I will keep the child with me till time to wean him, and when it's time to wean him, I will release him and let him go. You know the biggest problem we got in America today, right? We got a whole bunch of mamas that ain't weaned their babies yet, and their babies are way past the time. Now, I'm not going to be graphic here. You can paint pictures in your own mind. It's not natural at certain ages for children to not be weaned. I want you to think of that whole imagery there, that you adults. You understand how this works. Life, sustenance coming from mama. It's amazing in other countries. Breastfeeding is a whole different thing in other countries, especially in Southeast Asia and Africa. They're not real taboo with it over there, and they're not prim and proper like us. You know, they don't eat from the tree of life quite as much as we do in some of those countries. So everything is taboo here, and nothing's taboo in other countries. And I have preached many a sermon in other countries with women on the front row breastfeeding while I was preaching, and nobody trying to hide anything. And you know what? Can I tell you something? And you take it the way I mean it. Their innocence was a beautiful thing, because the whole process of what was going on was a beautiful thing. It's how God created it to be. Anyone here raised on a farm like me? You saw it every day. And on a farm, you know, there was 2 to 3 times a year where we gathered up calves. We ran the mama and the babies into the corral, where we separated mama back out into the pasture, put the babies in the barn. And how many of you guys know that nobody slept for the next 3 nights? Because the mamas are out there bawling, the babies are in the barn bawling, and at night, you know how sound just gets magnified at night. And we're laying there. The barn is about 120 yards maybe from our house where all this is going on. There's just dozens of cows out there. And Kevin, I know you've been through this. And it's all night long, and then the next night, and then it begins to dissipate, and it's a painful process for mama and baby. It's terrible. But slowly but surely, they all live through it. And mama finally finds her life without the baby, and the baby begins to discover his life without mama, and the circle of life continues. Anyone here want to admit with me that most of God's critters have got more going on in this department than we humans in America especially? Got to know when to wean your babies. Got to know when to hold on and when to fight. You got to know when to let go. I see problems in both areas. Mamas who aren't fighting for their babies. You know, one of my pet peeves here is mamas who ain't fighting for their daughters in ways that mamas tend in America, from my perspective, to be kind of dumb in. I helped take went with all the families taking our kids from Princeton Primary Show Choir to Dollywood and Dixie Stampede on Friday, all day long from 6 o'clock in the morning till we pulled back in Princeton at 1 o'clock Saturday morning. Have you ever been cooped up on a bus with a bunch of screaming second graders? Heather, I know you're here somewhere. Kelly, you were there. There was some people from this church on wonderful, memorable ride. Buses just move so fast. They're always ahead of schedule. And I took Hannah into a place called Red's down there. It's kind of like Johnny Rockets, to get her something to eat. And we sat down there, and there was some teenagers came over and sat down. And I apologize when I just go ahead and confess, when she walked by us and we sat down, it caught my eye, because there were things kind of exposed that shouldn't have been exposed on that little girl, and every eye in the room went to it. She sat down, and everything is just kind of hanging out there. And her friends came, and I assumed the one boy was her boyfriend that sat down beside her, and they're all over each other, they're leaning on each other, and they're all over each other so much there in that public place. You could only imagine what goes on when they're not in a public place. This little girl was probably 15 years old. And if you've been around here long, you know my feelings on this. As a father of a daughter, that protective nature comes out, and I start seeing every little girl as my daughter now. And I wanted to get up and walk over. First of all, I wanted to grab that little turd of a boy by the ear, stinking twist his ear, pick him up off the ground, because I want you to know, when these things happen, daddies find superhuman strength. Adrenaline begins to flow. You can pick a young man up by the ear off the ground. It's amazing. I wanted to pick him up, take him outside, take the lid off the trash can, deposit him. Sorry, I'm being real here. And I wanted to go sit down by a little girl, and I wanted to say, "Where's your mama? Did your mama see how you dressed before you left here today? Does your daddy know what's going on?" Trouble is, in America, I know there's a real good chance there may not be a daddy involved. But I can safely say, where's your mama? Where's your mama? Where's your mama? Why is your mama not fighting for you? Why is your mama letting you run around this place, 15 years old, dressed like a hooker, letting this little boy just slop all over you? Where's your mama? Why is your mama letting go before it's time to let go? Why is your mama not fighting for your future? I got angry. Anyone here ever had an out-of-body experience? And like in the movies, you don't know if it's really happening or not because someone gets up and they walk across the room. What was that Jim Carrey movie with the Dumb and Dumber? You know, and he's having the little fight with the waiter and pulls his heart out. And you go, my gosh, I can't believe this is actually happening. And then suddenly you realize he's just daydreaming what he really wants to do. I was having one of those moments. I was reaching there, grabbing people's hearts and was pulling. Not fighting for our daughters. And I have to ask, what's changed in America, mamas? Why aren't we fighting for our children in the right way anymore? Because it's a double whammy going on. We're not fighting for our children the way we need to, and then later on, we're not letting go the way we need to. We're letting our children do whatever they want when they're way too young to be making quality decisions with their life, because we want to be their friend. We want to be their buddy. I want Hannah to be one of my best little buddies in the world, but that's down the ladder a little bit. I always have to be daddy first. And I've told you before, I will risk her getting angry at me and even telling me at some point, potentially, I hate you. Stop trying to run my life. It's like, well, when you become an adult, hey, how many teenagers we got here? Go like this. Can I tell y'all something? As long as you ain't paying rent, and you ain't paying for your groceries, and you ain't help paying the electric bill, they got every right in the world to tell you what to do. Yeah. My daughter comes to me and she says, well, you can't tell me what to do. I'm 15 years old. It's like, all right, I'm waiting on some rent here. Then you start paying some mortgage here. You start buying some groceries, paying some utilities, we'll sit down and we'll have this conversation again. But as long as I'm paying your ticket in life, I'm going to decide where the ticket's going to take you. Huh? That's good preaching. I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm right. And if you don't agree, you're wrong. This is one area I'll get cocky and arrogant about. Why? Because America and American culture is not my plumb line. Well, my Bible's usually laying here. I don't even need a Bible to preach anymore. I'm getting pretty good at this, huh? The Word of God is my plumb line. What God says. Raise a child in the ways of the Lord, and when they're old, they'll not depart from it. All that stuff in there to daddies about, hey, your kids are rebelling, better take them to the woodshed or they're going to become an embarrassment to their mothers later on. I wonder why God put stuff like that in there. God must know better than us. Moms that need to know how to fight for their children's future, how to spiritually fight and war over them and for them. Learn to just say no. Learn to go shopping. And I like what someone told me after the marriage on the rock. Daddies, you need to learn to go shopping with your daughters also. If you don't like what they're wearing, go help pick out some appropriate stuff. And I didn't say you got to get all apostolic on this thing. Don't go to extremes. They can still be styling. My daughter, I don't let her do certain things, and she's very angry. She's very angry at me because she is the only little girl in the United States of America that is not being allowed to take hip-hop. She's the only one. All the other little girls in the world are all taking hip-hop. Riding back on the bus, and one of the moms that was sitting across from me, I heard her saying something. There's a bunch of them that we've all got our daughters in the same dance class and everything. And I heard her saying something to one of the mamas because her daughter wasn't happy with her because she wasn't letting her do hip-hop. And when they finished talking, I said, oh, so you got a problem with hip-hop? And I played the devil's advocate. She said, well, yeah. And her and her husband both work in law enforcement. She said, I know what's going on out there. I know about all those perverts sitting out there and all those dirty old guys. And she said, I don't want my daughter up on a stage grinding like she's on a stripper pole or something. I said, well, thank you, because would you please make sure that your daughter tells my daughter that she's not allowed to take hip-hop also? It'll be comforting to know that there's 2 little girls in the world not taking hip-hop, and she's not alone. I don't want my daughter, and whatever you do, that's on you. I'm not judging you. I'm saying me. This is me. I don't want my 8-year-old daughter up there grinding her body around like really even young adults shouldn't be doing, and she's 8 years old. Yes, it's innocent for her. To her, it means nothing. It's just dance moves. I understand that. Meanwhile, in the real world, it's not just dance moves. It's suggestive moves. It's sexual moves. We got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old daughters that are dressing like they're hanging out on Hollywood and Vine, and they're getting to do all kinds of stuff way before they need to be doing stuff. And I take a lot of blame with my daughter because we just caught on to this year. I'm sitting there and I'm letting her watch all these Disney shows, and Lord, there can't be anything wrong with Disney, but then it hits us one day. All these Disney shows she's watching, it's got teenagers in it, and it's not age appropriate for my 8-year-old daughter to be watching the social life of 16-year-olds. And people will go, yeah, you old fuddy-duddy. Do I look like a fuddy-duddy to you? Come on, I still listen to heavy metal music. If I need to wear a wig in here, I'll do it, if it'll help you view me different. You know me, there's not a legalistic bone in my body. I am not traditional in those dead ways at all. I ain't into all of that, and you guys know that. So obviously, I must be talking about something completely different today. The guardian of a child. They're babies. 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old, and 9 and 10 and 11, and for some reason we're confused and we think they should be able to handle things they can't handle, yet we're not guarding them, we're not protecting them. We got to wake up and smell the coffee here, because we got a whole lot of child abuse going on in America that CPS can't come in and do anything about. We're not guarding our children. The other problem we see in America is what child psychologists today are calling smother mothers. Smother mothers. These are mamas who don't know how to cut the cord when it's time to cut the cord. They don't know when to wean the calf. They have emotional umbilical cords and they don't know how to cut them. Problem is when it's time to let go and we don't let our children go, our children grow up without any self-sufficiency. They have no independence. They are very insecure. And they haven't learned how to be independent on others, by the way. interdependent on other human beings because Mama's always there rescuing them. Mama's always there rescuing them. They never get to grow up because we're always bailing them out. Sometimes kids need to go to jail overnight. Sometimes we don't need to bail them out. Sometimes we don't need to rescue them. There's a time and a place to guard them from stuff and say, well, hopefully they'll learn from this lesson. By the time they do it 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 more times, it's time to try a new process. We gotta let our children grow up and be exposed to consequences. And we're not cutting the cord and we're not letting go. You know my biggest beef is? Mamas who don't know how to let go continue to be their child's Messiah, and there's no place for God to find a wedge in there, a crack in there to begin to deal with their child's life. That's why my mama said, you're out of here. 900 miles, head south. Go as fast as you can go. Get in your car, leave. Your bags are packed. Paperwork's done. Go. And but my friends, and forget your friends. You need to get away from your friends. Your friends need to get away from you. Sounds unfair, doesn't it? My mom's choosing my friends now. How unfair is that? By the way, I was 19 years old. Like, you're out of here! I'll never forget the day that my parents came to me, and it was really my dad being the voice, and we'd come back from Bible college and everything, and I brought home a souvenir from college. I got a degree and a girlfriend at school, and so we don't know what to do. We're trying to get on with our life, so I move her here, and she's got her own bedroom over on the other side of the house, and you know, I'm stupid. I'm a kid. I don't know how it looks. So me and my girlfriend are living in the same house here. I'm not thinking anything about it. And my dad came in one day and he said, son, I need to talk to you. I said, what, Dad? He said, either marry the girl or take her home. That's all he said. I called my wife and I said, and she was at work, I said, what are you doing this Friday? She said, I guess nothing. I said, want to get hitched? We had about a week's planning, not even quite that. And our parents aren't like that anymore. And I'm wondering, why aren't we like that anymore? Why are we giving up? We're not fighting when we need to fight, and we're not letting go when we need to let go. What's wrong with us? This is not how the last generation was. This is not how my parents' generation was. I believe there's a lot of us that are still going to be like that. We're going to guard, guard, guard. If our kids get mad, they get mad. Your child getting mad at you saying they hate you is not the worst thing that can happen to them. We've got to guard and protect. And when it's time, we've got to let go. We've got to let go. And mamas, your children need God. And there's a point in their life they're never going to turn to God if you don't let go. And I remember my mom so many times saying, Lord, I just release him into your hands. I release him into your hands. And God was able to grab my heart. Within months of my mama releasing me, I was on my face, laying on the altar in that Bible college chapel in the middle of the night, crying out to the Lord, take my life. Own me. What if my mama would have never let go when she needed to let go? We wouldn't be sitting here as a church family today, I can tell you that. That just is a small picture of the consequences with every single one of our children, the trickle-down effect. If we can learn how to hold on till time to let go. Got to know when to wean our children. Got to know. Guys, I told you too, we got the new light back there. It wasn't coming down here. I know it's dark when I come down here, but I got to come down. That's good news for you all, because what usually follows this part? Dismissal. Listen, this is an emotional thing I'm talking about. This is not like any other sermon where we just get up here and we give you good, there you go, good information and just say, and it's all good, it's all important. But this message is a little different in the emotional department. Is it not? Parenting is hard, man. God couldn't even trust me to be a parent till just a few years ago. I mean, I'm on the bus going to these places and all these parents and me and my doctor, unnamed doctors, are two old guys and we've got 2 second graders, and so we just kind of always try to cleave together because we know everyone's thinking, oh, those 2 little girls, isn't that nice? Their grandpas came with them today. It's emotional. emotional. It's emotional. It is hard. It is so hard to be a parent. I don't know about you, but I don't read any manuals that help me. And I even read the Bible and I go, okay, I see what I need to do, but what God is telling me to do as a parent is real hard. Because there's disciplines and stuff in there that I just really don't want to do, to tell you the truth. So we're at Dollywood and we're running around and it's crowded. It's like Dolly is there like 2 times a year. And you know when one of those days was, right? Friday, when we were there. Which means you couldn't walk. We didn't know she was going to be there. No one knew she was going to be there. And she's in her little parade and she's coming around through Dollywood in her little car. And there's people everywhere. Which means every single ride we were in line for an hour. You know, I stand in line an hour to ride the Tennessee Tornado. And it's over in like 62 seconds. It wasn't that good. Not that good. So we find break for a late lunch and I find us something that Hannah will eat. And we're there and we're in a long line and there's people everywhere packed in all these places and there's some entertainment going on and Hannah wants to see it, so she's over there, then she comes back and I'm getting ready to order. I said, look, baby, stay here with me. I don't know what you want. We've got to get this and we've got to find a table or we're going to be in trouble. So don't leave me again. Stay right here. And she said, but I want to go over there and watch them. I said, no, you stay here. We're getting ready to order. She looked at me and she turned and she walked away. She's never done that in her life. It was my child's first act of willful rebellion on that level. And she started walking away and I said, Hannah, Hannah! And I raised my voice so loud that every single person, hundreds of people in there, they all turned and looked at me, except for one person. Anyone know what it's like to not be looking at your mama, but you know she's looking at you and you feel the burn? I am shocked that we're not laser beams coming out of my eyeballs. It's just, I look at that child and my heart's like, it's good that that child is over there right now. It's good that we're in a public place right now. And I was mad. See, my child makes many mistakes and I have to do what I've got to do, but I'm usually not angry at her. I'm just doing what I have to do as a good parent. This time I was angry, which was not the time to do anything anyway. So I'm staring at her, I'm just looking at her, it's like, you know how that you'll like strain, it's like if I strain my stare a little bit harder, they'll see it and you're going, you start shaking and I stare, she knows I'm looking at her, she feels the heat, and she glances up at me, and I go like that, and she looks back away. So I just intensify my stare a little bit more, and I'm like, she finally looks back, and I'm like, and she gets up, and she comes walking up, and she's like, what, Daddy? And you're just wanting to here's the hammer, here's the nail. Boom, baby, right down into the floor. I said, I said, I know you heard me because everyone in here heard me. I said, I want you to tell me the truth. Did you hear me call your name? She said, yes. I said, and you intentionally ignored me and walked away? And she said, yes, but no. You walked away. I said, I hope that was good entertainment. She said, why? I said, because it's your last entertainment of the day. I said, there's no more rides today. The next 2.5 hours, we're just walking around. We sat down and we eat, and she's teared up a little bit. You know, there was 2 people at that table, very, very upset. Who do you think was the most upset? And now I'm not talking anger anymore. You. I'm talking about brokenness. 10 minutes later, I'm wanting to recant so bad I can't stand it. I'm watching this beautiful little girl set here that's finally at Dollywood. We've got 2.5 hours left to ride rides. And now I told her when we said, I said, baby, do you understand the word consequences? She said, yes. I said, do you understand there has to be consequences to what you've done? She said, yes, Daddy. Well, I'd rather her just keep arguing with me. It makes it easier. But she processes very well, and she's like, Okay, Daddy. And then she's just all mellowed out the rest of the day and just nice, always holding my hand, you know, just like she's all over me and Daddy this and Daddy that. No, I love you, Daddy. And I want to just go, you know, baby, forget it. Let's go get back on that Tennessee tornado. No. And it hurt. And it was hard. It was terrible. Heather, it ended up being a terrible day for me because of that. Because it broke my heart to have to give my child consequences to teach her, you can't do that. You can't rebel like that. You can't ignore your daddy like that. We've got to know when to do what we've got to do to hold on to our children's future. Mamas, we depend on you a little more than the daddies, sad to say, in this department. And then we've got to know when to let go, to kick them out of the nest. Show them the front door. If you do like my mom, pack their bags for them, set them on the front porch, load them in the car, do what you got to do. Give them a kiss goodbye. And say, well, we'll see you at Christmas. We've got to do what we've got to do. I love you, mamas. If you're a mama in here, I want you to get up and come up here to me. I know I'm rattling on today, but you know what? I love teaching the Word of God. Theology, getting to the kingdom message and sonship, I am driven by that. But when you get into things like this today, it's stirring, man. It's emotional. And I think most fathers in here would agree with me that the things we're talking about to you mothers when it comes to the emotional side of parenting, I think that I represent the average father when we say it's very emotional for us too, isn't it? Sometimes we get a bad rap that we're just emotionless and we just, we're not sensitive to those things. I want you to know, I am a man. Where's my wife? I need a testimony here. And it is difficult. It is so difficult, but only in two areas. Knowing when to hold on and knowing when to let go. Other than that, it's a piece of cake. Knowing when to fight, when to protect, when to guard, when to say no. And then when to say, yes, you're leaving. There's a time to bring them all the nutrition that comes from mama. And there's a time to wean them. And mamas, without the guidance of the Holy Spirit in this department, you don't stand a chance. None of us do as parents. We say we don't know how to do this. God does. The teaching of the Holy Spirit, the intuitive nature of the Spirit of God that's in us will quicken in our spirit and let us know, hold on, and then do that. It'll also quicken us, let go, back off. Let them suffer these consequences. If y'all don't want your kids living with you till you die of old age, you better learn to do that. Let them suffer their consequences. Let them grow up. You know, when Jesus ran off when he was 12 years old, he ran off. It's like the next day and they noticed their child's missing. And here I was just bragging on Mary. It took her how long to realize her child was gone? So they hunt him back down, go to Jerusalem, and they find him. And this 12-year-old kid, he says, and I want you to hear this because I don't know if anyone's ever presented it quite like this. He says, didn't you know I had to be about my Father's business? And I don't know what happened after that. There may have been a woodshed experience after that. I don't know. But what he was saying is, I'm 12 years old and I am aware that I have a purpose. I am 12 and I understand there's a reason for me being. There's a destiny for me. At 12, he understood that. I'm telling you, if we'll raise our children right at a young age, our children will understand those same kind of things. And then we've got to know when to guard, when to hold on, when to initiate like Mary. No, you are doing this. And then when to stand from a distance and let him and her be what God designed for them to be. It's hard. It's hard, mamas. The brunt of this thing falls in your hands because you're the natural caretakers of God, of our children. You have an attachment to your children that nobody in the world will ever have. There's a safety in you that children know is there that they can't find anywhere else. There's just that There's that compassion, and there's a strength in you that children know only comes from you. And I want to pray for you today. The Spirit of God will teach you how to be good mamas. Hold on when you need to hold on. Let go when you need to let go. Grab some hands there. I thank you for these women today, Lord. What a picture. What power up here today, Lord. Father, the mamas that are here today, and Lord, the many mamas at Cornerstone that aren't here today, Lord, I look at just that, and there's such a strength in this house from just that. Lord, you have given a specific spirit to women to be mothers that just is unparalleled. Lord, there's a sternness, and just that ability to stand in the face of whatever when it comes to their children. They will die fighting for their children. They will give their life, Lord, if need be. You know that, Lord, because you created them to be this way. Today, Lord, I first of all re-announce your blessings upon these women's life. Their children are a gift from you. They know that. I know that. You know that. Thank you for that. Now today, Lord, I pray that you'll give them fresh boldness, fresh insights and wisdom, and fresh courage now, Lord, to follow the pattern of Hannah, to raise their children in your house, to raise your children, Lord, in your ways. Help them, Lord, to find the strength to hold on when they need to hold on, regardless of what anyone else is doing, to fight when everyone else has given up. Also give them the strength, Lord, to know when to wean their children, when to back off, when to stay at a distance, when to allow their children to face consequences and grow up. I thank you for these women today, Lord, these mothers. Where would your church be without them? And I bless them today, Lord. Father, many of these women are tired. Lord, it's not like the old days. They're going and they're working their 9 to 5 and they're coming home and they're raising their children and they're doing all the many things going on at the school, all the recreational things. And Lord, it is just a schedule like we've never seen for mothers ever before. And I know they're emotionally drained at times and physically wore out at times. And I pray today, Lord, you would just recharge their jets. Stir in them, Lord, and just a fresh fire, Lord, to be your daughters and to be their children's mothers. And today, Lord, may they leave this place full and determined. And I know, Lord, that in this place that several of them maybe got spanked just a little bit, maybe, and need to go home and think hard about some readjustments that's not going to be easy to do. But I pray, Lord, for a supernatural courage in their hearts, because they love their children so much, that they will go home and do what they know they need to do. And as they do that, Lord, may they just sense their God just smiling upon them. Bless them, Lord, and their whole household as they do what they need to do as mothers. Can we just give these ladies a great applause today?